You've seen them all over Amazon. Liquid coolers for 25, 30, maybe even £35 or dollars if you're feeling generous. And the spec sheet says they'll easily handle a 200-watt TDP. Sounds like a proper deal, right? But here's the thing. That spec sheet doesn't tell you the whole story. In fact, there are a few things these budget AIO manufacturers are very much hoping that you will not stop to think about. So, today I'm going to walk you through exactly what's hiding behind those low price tags, where all the real traps are, and probably most importantly, where the actual value sweet spot sits for liquid cooling on a budget. Because the answers to this might actually surprise you. Let me start with a bit of context because cheap AIO means different things to different people. So let's define our terms. So for this video, I'm mainly talking about any 240mm AIO cooler sitting below around $50 or pounds. That covers your no-name Amazon units, your generic rebadge coolers, and honestly, a few brand name products that are trading on their name rather than on build quality. Now, I've been building and repairing PCs for quite some time now, and AIOs come up very regularly on the repair side of things. Not because liquid cooling is inherently unreliable, because it isn't, but because there is a real difference between a well-engineered closed loop cooler and one that was built to a price point, essentially. And that difference is almost never visible on the spec sheet themselves. So let's start to talk about what actually goes wrong. And there are three main culprits in my experience. So number one, the pump. This is obviously the heart of any AIO system, and on budget units, it's almost always where corners get cut first. The pump motor quality, the bearing type, the build tolerances, they are all dialed back when you're building to a £25 or dollar price point. So a good pump on a quality AIO should last 5, maybe even 7 years under normal use. On some of these budget units, you might get 2 or 3, maybe less if you're pushing that particular system quite hard. Number 2, the tubing. Most AIOs use rubber or braided rubber hoses, and over time, we're talking 2 to 3 years on the cheapest units, those tubes start to permeate, which is a little bit of a fancy way of saying that the coolant slowly evaporates through the walls. When that happens, you start to lose coolant volume, you lose, pump cavitation increases, and eventually, it fails. So, number 3, and this one catches people out quite a bit, the cold plate, the bit that actually touches your CPU. On budget AIOs, you'll often find a flat copper plate, but the quality of the machining and internal design can vary quite wildly. That matters for contact quality and heat transfer. And of course, the pre-applied thermal paste, well, it's functional, but it's rarely optimal. Here's where things get even more interesting. This is something that really frustrates me about budget AIO marketing. The TDP ratings. You'll often see supports up to 250-watt TDP on a £30 or dollar cooler. And in a lab or an open test bench, that might technically be true for very short bursts. But that's not how most people actually use their PCs day to day. In real world cases, those numbers often completely fall apart. What you'll often find in practice is that a budget 240mm AIO performs remarkably similarly to a high quality air tower. So something like a Deepcool AK400 or a Thermalright Assassin X, which in all honesty often costs significantly less. So let that one sink in. You're paying a premium for the liquid cooled look, but not necessarily for better thermals. The other thing that never makes the spec sheets are the noise. Budget AIOs often have to compensate even for less efficient heat transfer by ramping their fans up to much higher RPMs. And you're definitely going to notice it. These aren't silent systems under loads. So if you're building for a quiet environment, then you're likely going to be very disappointed. So I'm not saying that every cheap AIO is e-waste, but what I am saying is that if you're buying one expecting high-end performance just because the box says so, basically the spec sheet is not your friend. And talking about friends, if you are finding this useful, please do hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel out. And if you want more of this kind of content, make sure that you're subscribed. Right, now back to it. So where does that actually leave us? Because I don't just want this video to be a takedown. I want to give you guys something useful as always. So for me, the value sweet spot for liquid cooling sits around the 50 to 70 pounds or dollars for a 240mm AIO. That's where you start getting properly engineered units instead of just looks good on the box. So coolers like the Arctic Liquid Freezer 240 and similar models in that price range are a very good example. You've got decent pump design, solid fans, and generally quite sensible build quality. That's where liquid cooling actually starts to make complete sense. Now, here's the honest truth. For a typical mid-range gaming build, so Ryzen 5, Core i5, mostly limited at 1080p or 1440p, a good air cooler will match that performance for less money. So something like the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 SE is more than enough for most gaming workloads. Where AIOs start to justify themselves is on higher power draw CPUs, sustained workloads, or more thermally demanding builds. So think higher end Ryzen 7s, Core i7s and i9s, or heavy all core loads. That's where the extra cooling capacity and sometimes the case airflow flexibility actually makes quite a difference. So let me give you the simple version. So there are three scenarios here. Scenario one, budget gaming build with a mid-range CPU. Get a good air cooler. Every pound that you spend, even on a value AIO, is better invested in better case fans or a slightly better GPU. You'll get more performance where it actually matters. Scenario 2, the mid-range to high-end build with no heavy overclocking. A 50 to 70 pound or dollar AIO, something like the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3, is a sensible choice. You're getting a design with a proven track record, decent noise levels, and a much better long-term reliability than the ultra budget units. Scenario 3, high TDP CPUs or heavy all-core workloads. This is where liquid cooling really does earn its keep. I'd recommend a 240mm unit at the absolute minimum. Ideally, a 360mm if your case supports it. And definitely don't go with no-name budget options here, because at the end of the day, A money sinkhole is a cooler that you will have to replace twice in 3 years because you tried to save that £25 or dollar value the first time around. So that's really what this all comes down to. The spec sheet sells you on potential. Real world use tells you whether that potential is genuine or not. And when it comes to cheap AIO coolers, most of them are hoping very much that you won't look too closely. Now, as always, I'd like to hear from you. What cooler are you running right now? Is it liquid? Is it air? And let me know if you've had an AIO fail on you. Drop it in the comments. I generally like to know actually. And of course, if you found this helpful or at all interesting, please, please, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And that's it for this week, guys. Take care, and I will see you on the next build.